and the bass keeps running, running, and 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 running, running, and.
My name is Mackenzie Arledge, the runner is Dan Hyatt, and the recorder is Kim Borth. This is the 40-yard dash. The goal of this test is to measure how fast an individual can run 40 yards, and the purpose is to test someone's speed. The equipment you will need for this test will be a stopwatch, a flat running surface with the start and finish line 40 yards apart, and a timer and a recorder.
It is very important for the athlete to have a proper dynamic warm-up and stretch, so allow for 5 to 10 minutes for this to happen. Make sure the athlete is also wearing proper running gear. Allow the athlete to have 2 practice runs at sub-max speed before you start the actual test. The person should start in a 3-point stance or a 4-point stance. The person will start their 40-yard dash when the timer gives an auditory or visual signal.
The average of 2 trials is recorded to the nearest 0.1 second. Use this time and chart to determine your ratings.
When performing any fitness test, there's always mistakes that can come along the way. When administering the 40-yard dash, there's certain things to take into consideration. First off, we don't want our athletes to start with too wide of a base. The most common flaw we see in athletes starting with their feet outside their hips. When we see this, we immediately want to cut the athlete's base down to hip width. A narrower base puts the ankle under the hip joint, allowing the athlete to repel from the center of his mass. The next mistake is an incorrect start angle. Many athletes start the 40 from too much of an upright angle. To find the right angle, first point your shin down the track, not towards the sky. To maintain this stance, pull your lead foot 4 to 6 inches back from the line. In a half-kneeling position, your back knee should be in line with the instep of your front leg. Next, walk your hands out in front to create a forward body lean. Make sure your stance support arm is directly under your shoulder with no bend at the elbow. Your offhand should be bent at a 90-degree angle and placed on your hip. Finally, tuck your chin, raise your hips slightly above your shoulder, and take a deep breath. You're in the 40-yard dash base setup. The next mistake is poor timing, and this can come from the start or the end of the test. Even when you line up correctly, you can still make 3 common mistakes in the first split second of the 40, any of which will throw off your timing. The first one is a failure to get an effective push from the lead leg to eject the body from the stance. The second is overstriding with the back foot and landing completely flat-footed. The third is lifting vertically with the stance arm after takeoff. Those are all from the start. At the end of the test, we want our timer to be starting the watch as soon as the athlete makes first movement and ending the time as soon as the athlete crosses the finish line. That takes us to the end of the test. Another common mistake we find with athletes is them not running all the way through the line. This can take tenths to hundreds of seconds off their time, and that's the last thing we want to do. The last mistake we see when administering a 40-yard dash or any sprint test is an improper dynamic warm-up. As silly as it sounds, it happens all the time where athletes tweak or pull muscles. The last thing we want to do is hurt our athletes while we're trying to test them. The 40-yard dash should be administered in a safe way so we can ensure all the athletes' best times.
In this context, there's no disrespect, so when I bust my rhyme, you break your necks. We got 5 minutes for us to disconnect from all intellect and